Hi guys, my name is Emily. Welcome to my bookshelf tour of 2017. The footage that you are about to watch was filmed on October 26, 2017. I did ask on Instagram what sort of bookshelf tour format you guys preferred. Overwhelmingly, you guys said that you preferred one long video. So that is what I have created for you today. Let me know your thoughts on the bookshelf tour in the comments down below. Grab yourself a cup of tea, get cozy, and enjoy. Starting with this stack here, this is a pile of books that I have read and set aside for my Sex and YA series. So on top, I have a little TY Beanie Boo. This is Darla, and she is a cute little pink dragon with sparkles in her, and I couldn't resist when she went on sale. I think I ended up paying like $1 for her with my employee discount. So we have Looking for Alaska, Paper Towns, The Fault in Our Stars, all by John Green, Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, and the Upside of Unrequited by Becky Abertally, Beauty Queens by Libba Bray, George by Alex Gino, Been Here All Along by Sandy Hall, Forever by Judy Blume, Doing It by Hannah Witten, Two Boys Kissing by David Levithan, Girls and Sex, Navigating the Complicated New Landscape by Peggy Ornstein, The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Shabatsky, Squire by Tamora Pierce, Twilight by Stephanie Meyer, and of course the book that actually inspired this research and project, Empire of Storms by Sarah J. Maas. So this next bookcase here, you will notice, is actually two half-sized Billy bookcases from IKEA that I MacGyvered into a full-size shelf. You can see it sitting beside a regular-sized Billy bookshelf. I just flipped the Billy bookcase upside down, and it's been reinforced on the side with some steel pieces, and the two Billy bookcases have actually been screwed together where they connect between the top little Billy bookcase and the actual Billy bookcase. These two shelves that you're looking at are read children's literature. I decided to isolate all of my early readers, 6 to 8, young readers, 9 to 12, and my YA or teen literature, just because it's easier for me this way. So on this shelf, I have, for decoration and just for storage purposes, a tea tumbler from my university, Western University. It's glass. It's very nice. I have a Oh Witch Please podcast merch mug. I have a bamboo plant that has seen better days, but it has been moved a lot. And I have a couple of books that are duplicated or that I have to sell or whatever. I needed a place to put them. So on this shelf, I have a little Halloween Beanie Boo. I have my Funko Pops mini mystery box guys, Ron and Draco. And I have a little lantern, which does turn on. So on the shelf below it, I have on display The Lotteries Plus One by Emma Donoghue. I really like this book and I really like the cover, so I like to face it out. I've also got a little pumpkin for Halloween. Obviously this doesn't live here all year long. And I have 2 packs of cards. They are Forgotten English 3, Long Lost Insults, and Forgotten English Knowledge Cards by Jeffrey Kekirk, whatever. And that is it for the knickknacks on this shelf, so I'm gonna go into the books. So the tripod is not resting on the ground. It is resting on my shoulder, so sorry for any shakiness. I'm gonna try and do this as nicely as possible. So I have Little Women, abridged by Louisa May Alcott, Little Women, the Puffin Classic Edition by Louisa May Alcott, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl by Jessie Andrews, Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson, and Winter Girls by Laurie Halse Anderson, 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher, Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt, The Witches of Willowmere, The Warding of Willowmere, and The Word of Willowmere by Alison Baird, Abarat by Clive Barker, Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie, The Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum, The Goblin Wood by Hilary Bell, Dear Dumb Diary, Let's Pretend This Never Happened by Jim Benton, Double Fudge, Tales of the Fourth Grade Nothing, and Blubber by Judy Blume, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas by John Boyne, The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, The Second Summer of the Sisterhood, Girls in Pants, and Forever in Blue, The Fourth Summer of the Sisterhood by Anne Brashares, Sisterhood Everlasting by Anne Brashares. This is technically an adult novel, but I put it with the rest of the series. Megan Mead's Guide to the McGowan Boys by Kate Bryan, The Adventures of Patty the Beaver by Thornton W. Burgess, The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett, The Thief and the Beanstalk by P.W. Cantonese, the Oxford World Classics edition of Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. Then you see my post-Twilight phase, Marked, Betrayed, Chosen, Untamed, Hunted, Tempted, and Burned by PC Cast and Kristen Cast. And what's left are the 4 books that I need to sell. We need to talk about Kevin by Lionel Shriver, a 3rd edition of the 9th edition, Volume B of the Norton Anthology of English Literature, 16th century and early 17th century. For Today I'm a Boy by Kim Fu, and Arcadia by Ian Pierce. So what I have here is a stack of books that needs to be alphabetized into the rest of the books. I just haven't had the time to shift to work them in. The Worst Witch by Jill Murphy, The Wolf is Back by Robert Priest, A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L'Engle, The Care and Feeding of a Pet Black Hole by Michelle Cuvée, an advanced reader copy of The Last Namsara by Kristen Ciccarelli, A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, inspired by an idea from Siobhan Dowd and illustrated by Jim Kay, The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, Moxie by Jennifer Mathieu, Fantastic Mr. Fox by Roald Dahl, The Twits by Roald Dahl, The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, excuse my horrible pronunciation, City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare, and City of Bones by Cassandra Clare, Half Moon, The Supernaturalist, Artemis Fowl, The Arctic Incident, The Eternity Code, The Atlantis Complex, The Time Paradox, The Lost Colony, and The Opal Deception by Owen Coffer, The Hunger Games paperback, The Hunger Games Catching Fire and Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins, which I'm not going to wrestle out of the box, The Singer of All Songs by Cait Constable, Into the Land of the Unicorns, and Song of the Wanderer by Bruce Coville, Absolutely Normal Chaos, and Walk Two Moons by Sharon Creech, The Unseen series, It Begins, Rest in Peace, Blood Brothers, and Sin and Salvation by Richie Tankersley Cusick, The Adventures of the Bailey School Kids, Vampires Don't Wear Polka Dots, Werewolves Don't Go to Summer Camp, Santa Claus Doesn't Mop Floors, Leprechauns Don't Play Basketball, Ghosts Don't Eat Potato Chips, Frankenstein Doesn't Plant Petunias, Aliens Don't Wear Braces, Genies Don't Ride Bicycles, Pirates Don't Wear Pink Sunglasses, Witches Don't Do Backflips, Skeletons Don't Play Tubas, Cupid Doesn't Flip Hamburgers, Gremlins Don't Chew Bubblegum, Dracula Doesn't Drink Lemonade, Elves Don't Wear Hard Hats, Martians Don't Take Temperatures, Gargoyles Don't Drive School Buses, Wizards Don't Need Computers, Dracula Doesn't Rock and Roll, Sea Monsters Don't Ride Motorcycles, Vikings Don't Wear Wrestling Belts, Wizards Don't Wear Graduation Gowns, Sea Serpents Don't Juggle Water Balloons, Swamp Monsters Don't Chase Wild Turkeys, Ogres Don't Hunt Easter Eggs, Aliens Don't Carve Jack-o'-lanterns, Mrs. Claus Doesn't Climb Telephone Poles, Mrs. Jeepers' Secret Cave, apparently she doesn't do anything, and Mrs. Jeepers' Monster Class Trip. And the tripod is finally on the floor, so once again, things that aren't alphabetized in the correct place. We have The Lotteries Plus One by Emma Donoghue, The Never Ending Story by Michael Ende, and The Sight by David Clement Davies. Actually alphabetized and in place is Harriet the Spy by Louise Fitzhugh, Shades of Grey by Jasper Ford, a box set of If I Stay and Where She Went, which I am not going to take out of the box. Those are by Gail Foreman. The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank, Dragon Rider by Cornelia Funk, The Thief Lord by Cornelia Funk, Coraline, The Graveyard Book, and Fortunately the Milk, all by Neil Gaiman, Julie of the Wolves by Jean Craighead George, The Tea Witches series, or Twitches, however you want to pronounce that, The Power of Two, Building a Mystery, Seeing is Deceiving, Dead Wrong, Don't Think Twice, Double Jeopardy, and The Witch Hunters by H.B. Gilmore and Randy Ricefield. I have the Iona duology, which is Eon and Iona by Alison Goodman. I have a children's edition of The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame, and then the Puffin Classics edition of The Wind in the Willows. Half Bad and Half Wild by Sally Green, The Zigzag Kid by David Grossman, Just Ella by Margaret Peterson Haddix, A Boy Called Christmas by Matt Haig, The Princess in Black Takes a Vacation by Shannon Hale and Dean Hale, Folk and Fairy Tales, edited by Martin Hallett and Barbara Karsak, Stowaway by Karen Hess, The Outsiders by Essie Hinton, and That Was Then, This Is Now by Essie Hinton. Moving on to this next shelf, I have Nutcracker and Mouse King by E.T.A. Hoffman, and The Tale of the Nutcracker by Alexandre Dumas, Witch Witch by Ava Ibbotson, Juniper Lemon's Happiness Index by Julie Israel, Blood and Chocolate by Annette Curtis Claus, Kidnapped, Book 1, The Abduction by Gordon Corman, The Girls by Amy Goldman Koss, Leon and the Spitting Image by Alan Kurzweil, Two Princesses of Bamar by Gail Carson Levine, and Ella Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine, A Bind-Up of the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis, Gathering Blue, The Giver, and Messenger by Lois Lowry, The Hollow Tree by Jeanette Loon, Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Heir of Fire, and Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas, The Princess and the Goblin by George MacDonald, Four Stupid Cupids by Gregory Maguire, The Blue Sword by Robin McKinley, The Female of the Species by Mindy McGuinness, Vampire Academy, Frostbite, Shadow Kiss, and Blood Promise by Rochelle Mead, New Moon and Eclipse by Stephanie Meyer, and Best in Children's Books. No author. I have no idea why I put this here. Probably because it fit. Breaking Dawn by Stephanie Meyer, and The Host by Stephanie Meyer, Ramona Blue by Julie Murphy, The Dragon's Blade, The Reborn King by Michael R. Miller, The Ghosts of Ashbury High by Jacqueline Moriarty, The Story of the Treasure Seekers by E. Nesbitt, Keys to the Kingdom, Mr. Monday, Grim Tuesday, Drowned Wednesday, Sir Thursday, and Lady Friday by Garth Nix, Island of the Blue Dolphins by Scott Odell, Aragon by Christopher Paolini, Bridge to Terabithia by Catherine Patterson, Tom's Midnight Garden by Philippa Pierce, Tosh Hart's Tolstoy by Catherine Ormsby. Then we begin my Tamora Pierce collection. Where's book 1? Terrier. There we go. Terrier, which is the first book in the Becca Cooper series. Bloodhound and Mastiff. We have a recent Penguin bind-up of Alana Song of the Lioness. So this is books 1 and 2 in the Song of the Lioness quartet. I have my original editions. Alana, the First Adventure, In the Hand of the Goddess, Woman Who Rides Like a Man, and Lioness Rampant. I have some more recent editions here because my other editions were falling apart. Alana, the First Adventure, In the Hand of the Goddess, and Lioness Rampant, Wild Magic, Wolf Speaker, Emperor Mage, and The Realm of the Gods, which are the 4 books that make up the Immortals quartet. The bottom shelf I won't go into. It's just photo albums, yearbooks, and music books, a couple of cooking books. So now we're going to move on to shelf number 2, which, as you can see, has quite a lot of stuff on it. So 3 and about a half of these shelves are the continuation of children's and YA literature, and then the third shelf from the bottom is the beginning of my Canadian literature, and then the second from the bottom shelf is the continuation of my Canadian literature, and the very bottom is some miscellaneous books and my picture books. So let's start with the knickknacks on this shelf. Okay, so I can't even see what I'm doing because it's up this high. So up on the top I have mugs. We'll just pan over and hope that's in shot. Maybe at some point I'll do a mug collection, but for now, just know that I keep my mugs up there. This next shelf here has all of the spooky Halloween-y mugs because I am filming this on October 26th. On this shelf, I have my Funko Pop collection. So I've got Hagrid and Scabbers and Hermione and Crookshanks, Neville and Luna, Harry and Dobby, and then these books here I have faced out because they're the collector Harry Potter editions and I think they are beautiful. And this right here is a pile of the books that I have read in October so far and have set aside for my monthly wrap-up. Here I have framed a card that says, "You are a freaking magical unicorn." I've got a little tea light that I made with my youth group, so I had the kids make these crafts out of Mod Podge and tissue paper, so we pasted the tissue paper on and then we put black cardboard on the top, topped everything in Mod Podge, and when you light it up, the little spooky scene that you have sort of silhouettes, and they're really fun and seasonally appropriate. Then I have here the illustrated edition of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and Harry Potter and Another Little Dobby, a Hedwig and a Harry in the Hogwarts Express. On this shelf I have a little lantern and candle, and then here, this is a brick. It's actually from a heritage house in the town where I live, because when I was in high school I put everything in my bag, and people always joked that my book bag was full of bricks, and so for my birthday my friend actually gifted me a brick that, yes, I did carry around in my bag for the joke for like a week. So once again, the tripod is not resting on the ground. Sorry for any shakiness, but we're going to continue with my Tamora Pierce collection. First test, page, Squire, and Lady Knight. These are the 4 books in the Protector of the Small series. These are my original editions. And because I couldn't bring myself to write in my original childhood editions, I bought myself a second set of First Test, Page, Lady Knight. Squire, we already saw, was in that stack on the stool when I first started this tour. It's part of the Sex and Way series. These guys I marked up for my thesis, and they're full of all my notes and thoughts. Next we have Trickster's Choice and Trickster's Queen. Then we get into the Circle of Magic books, Sandry's book, Triss's book, Daja's book, and Briar's book. These are part of the Circle of Magic quartet. Then we have The Circle Opens, Quartet, Magic Steps, Street Magic, Cold Fire, and Shatterglass. We have sort of a standalone in the Circle of Magic books universe, which is Will of the Empress. And then we have a kind of weird collection of short stories from Tamora Pierce called Tortal and Other Lands. Once again, I am not going to rustle these out of the box, but I have The Golden Compass, The Subtle Knife, and The Amber Spyglass, all by Philip Pullman. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. Divergent, Insurgent, Allegiant, and an advanced reader's copy of Carve the Mark by Veronica Roth. Next is the Harry Potter shelf. This is probably my favorite shelf out of all of my shelves. Just to get this out of the way, I have in my to be reviewed or to be wrapped up pile Woman Who Rides Like a Man by Tamora Pierce, From Here to Eternity by Caitlin Doughty, and Wicked Like a Wildfire by Lana Popovic. On this Harry Potter shelf, we start in the very corner with Quidditch Through the Ages and Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, The Tales of the Beetle Bard, the new edition of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. This is a hardcover of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone to replace my soft cover, which is falling apart, and it matches the editions that I have and I associate with childhood. The aforementioned paperback of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone from my childhood that is falling apart. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, aka Harry Potter and the Chamber of Ethnic Cleansing. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. This is an edition that I bought to replace this Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which is falling apart and has actually lost some pages, and I'm not quite sure where they are. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I have 2 editions of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, again because mine fell apart. Lovely, lovely. So I replaced it with one that looks just like it, and I have Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Then I have an American edition of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, which I won in some sort of library competition. I have the House edition books for the 20th anniversary of Harry Potter. These are the Hufflepuff, Slytherin, Ravenclaw, and Gryffindor editions of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, and Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, the original screenplay. All of these things are by J.K. Rowling. I've got Eleanor and Park, Carry On, this really awesome cover. I love this cover of the paperback of Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, so I bought it because it captures the story so much more, I think, than the original cover, which, yes, has 2 boys on the cover, but isn't quite as gay, and also apparently didn't do a good job taking the sticker off. But, so yeah, I have 2 copies of Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, but I significantly prefer this edition. And Holes by Louis Sachar. On this next shelf here, I have a stack of books that's not quite alphabetical. It's just a stack of things that sort of belong in the R's and S's. I had the Dust Jacket for Turtles All the Way Down, which I have lent to my partner. Virgin by Radhika Sanghani. Tunnels of Blood, The Vampire's Assistant, and Cirque du Freak by Darren Shan. The Lightning Thief, the first book in Percy Jackson and the Olympians by Rick Riordan. Quest, Physic, and Flight by Angie Sage. These are all Septimus Heap books. I'm not really sure where the rest that belong in this series are, but I definitely do have book 1 somewhere. I did not start with book 2. Lord of Loss by Darren Shan. Pretty Little Liars. Perfect. Flawless. Ooh. And Unbelievable. Milkweed and Loser by Jerry Spinelli. Rowan Hood by Nancy Springer. I have multiple editions of Heidi. the Great Illustrated Children's Classic, a really, really old edition from my grandmother. And then I have Heidi Grows Up by Joanna Spiri's translator, illustrated edition of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Behind that, we have Blue Lily, Lily Blue, and Dream Thieves by Maggie Stiefvater, Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, If I Was Your Girl by Meredith Russo, and The Raven King, the fourth book in the Raven cycle by Maggie Stiefvater, Chanda's Wars by Alan Stratton. I have the Bartimaeus trilogy, which again, I'm not going to take out of the box, but that is the Amulet of Samarkand, The Golem's Eye, and Ptolemy's Gaze. I have bind-ups of the Sweet series. This is volume 3, The Calling, Changeling, and Strife. This is volume 2, Dark Magic, Awakening, and Spellbound. Then we move on to this next shelf. The illustrated edition of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. This was a birthday gift from my wonderful sister. We have a stack here in front of everything. These are The Littles and the Lost Children. The Littles go to school. The Littles take a trip. The Littles have a wedding. The Littles go exploring. The Littles. The Littles and the Trash Tinies. The Littles give a party. The Littles and the Terrible Tiny Kid. And The Littles and Their Amazing New Friend, all by John Peterson. We have one of my favorite pieces of children's literature, Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. An advanced reader copy of The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas with all of my notes. An advanced reader copy of Goodbye Days by Jeff Zentner, and the actual published for sale copy of Goodbye Days. Continuing the bind-ups of the Sweep series by Cait Tiernan, which is Reckoning, Full Circle, and Knight's Child. That's volume 5. And then we have the Sweep Volume 4, Seeker Origins Eclipse by Cait Tiernan, The Edge on the Sword by Rebecca Tingle, my original edition of The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, and then this beautiful box set of The Hobbit, The Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, and Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien, flipped by Wendelin, nice name, Wendelin Van Draaien. Gossip Girl by Cicely von Ziegesar. The Uglies, Pretties, The Specials, and the Extras, all by Scott Westerfield. Dragon and Keeper by Carol Wilkinson. Spanking Shakespeare by Jake Wisner. The Christmas Doll by Elvira Woodruff. Wizard's Hall by Jane Yolen. And The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak. So this marks the end of my children's lit YA, and now we move on to my Canadian literature collection. 15 Dogs by Andre Alexis, Bodily Harm, Negotiating with the Dead, A Writer on Writing, Surfacing, Alias Grace, The Edible Woman, and Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood, 3 Day Road, and Wenjack by Joseph Boyden, and Waiting for Joe by Sandra Birdsell. Moving on to this next shelf, I have the Amulet box set. Again, I'm not going to take them out. The Stonekeeper, The Stonekeeper's Curse, The Cloud Searchers, The Last Council, Prince of Thieves, Escape from Lucian, and the 7th one that does belong in this box set is actually on my TBR pile because it's the only one I haven't read. And this is a box set. My mom has borrowed the other 2 books in this box set. Wonder is in here, but what belongs in the box is also Augie and Me, 3 Wonder Stories, and 365 Days of Wonder by R.J. Pelliccio. Back here, we have What We All Long For by Dion Brand, Half-Breed by Maria Campbell, Short Talks by Anne Carson, The Jade Peony by Wason Choi, Pale as Real Ladies by Joan Crate, River Thieves by Michael Crummy, Fifth Business by Robertson Davies, From the Medley by Peggy Dragisic, Emily of New Moon by Ella Montgomery, The Imperialist by Sarah Jeanette Duncan, The Wars by Timothy Finley, For Today I Am a Boy by Kim Fu, this one was signed by the author, Falling Angels, Helpless, and We So Seldom Look on Love by my favorite Canadian author, Barbara Gowdy, Alone in the Classroom and Late Nights on Air by Elizabeth Hay, Gaff Topsails by Patrick Kavanagh, The Seed Catalog by Robert Crutch, whatever. Canadian Literature in English, Texts and Context, Volume 1 by Cynthia Sugars and Laura Moss. All My Relations, an anthology of contemporary Canadian native fiction, edited by Thomas King. And a Historic by Daphne Marlett. Under the Ribs of Death by John Marlin. Pain, Porn, and Complicity, Women Heroes from Pygmalion to Twilight by Kathleen McConnell. The Serpent's Egg, The Burning Crown, and The Twisted Blade by J. Fitzgerald McCurdy. Fugitive Pieces by Anne Michaels. Tales from Fibrosia Bag by Rohinton Mystery. Canadian Literature in English, Text and Context, Volume 2 by Laura Moss and Cynthia Sugars. Two Against the North by Farley Mowat, In the Skin of a Lion, The Collected Works of Billy the Kid, and Coming Through Slaughter by Michael Ondaatje, Silverwing, Sunwing, The Nest, Skybreaker, all by Kenneth Opel, Standing All the Night Through by Audrey Petkertisen, Evening Snow Will Bring Such Peace by David Adams Richards, Adult Language Warning by William Robertson, As for Me and My House by Sinclair Ross, The Afterlife of George Cartwright by John Steffler, Steveston by Daphne Marlett and Robert Minden. Okay, so next we're going to be looking at this third bookshelf here. And to actually look at it, I am going to be moving my bed for you guys. You're welcome. So that is as much as I can physically move my bed. So this shelf actually normally has a lot of personal items on it because it's not normally in shot when I'm filming. And if I am filming with this in the background, it's usually super far in the background. I feel like it doesn't matter. But this shelf usually contains photos of my family, and I just feel like they're not putting their faces on the internet, so I'm not going to show you pictures of them. So at the very top here, we have my teapot collection. So this is a little personal sized teapot that my mom bought me when I first got into tea. This teapot here, my wonderful partner bought for me. I think it was a birthday gift. And this one here is fantastic for if you're studying because, again, this is from my partner, I think for Christmas, if I'm not mistaken. This is metal and it keeps things hot for a really long time, which is what you want when you're slowly consuming cups of tea. This next shelf here has a second little Scabbers because he's a duplicate, and my Hummel figure from my Oma when she moved out of her house into my aunt and uncle's house on the farm. She sort of divided up a lot of her things and I got one of her Hummels. And then I am currently displaying The Little Book of Hygge, A Danish Way to Living Well by Meek Viking, because we're headed into like the cozy time of year and I want to revisit some of the crafts and recipes. Obviously, this doesn't live here all of the time. This is a larger version of the creepy ghost guy you saw earlier and a little ceramic pumpkin. This is a little candle holder that my dad actually made when they were doing some clearing on my grandfather's property. He saved a bunch of pieces of the birch tree that they had to cut down. He turned them into a whole bunch of these actually, so it's felt lined on the bottom and then it has little cups for tea lights, and because it's dry wood on a wooden bookshelf with like lovely flammable paperbacks in the background, I have been opting for the little electric candles in it. Moving this next shelf down, I have, you probably actually can't tell that they're here, I keep a bunch of cards and things that are sentimental to me that I don't want to get rid of, but I do like to look at often. And then I've got my alcohol because I am a legal adult and I have had this for a while now. So this is from a local distillery. It's O Canada Maple Liqueur. It's from 40 Creek Distillery in Grimsby and it is like magic. The thing that you may have access to and the thing that I also have on the shelf is Crown Royal Maple Whiskey, a limoncello liqueur from Dillon's Small Batch Distillery. I have a little dish of coins. I have a beeswax candle and a thing. Again, if the power goes out, I like to have it. And also this smells really nice because it's beeswax. And then on the bottom, I have my Moksha Yoga drink thingy, which is great for in the summer. So on this shelf here, we have the continuation of my Canadian literature collection, Monkey Beach by Eden Robinson, Do Not Say We Have Nothing by Madeleine Tien, A Complicated Kindness, All My Puny Sorrows, and Swing Low a Life, all by Miriam Taves, again, one of my favorite Canadian authors, The Lesser Blessed, Night Moves, and Godless But Loyal to Heaven by Richard Van Camp, The Ever After of Ashwin Rao by Padma Vishwanathan, The Double Hook by Sheila Watson, and End of Days by Eric Walters. And what begins here is my anthologies. So I have the Norton Anthology of Theory and Criticism, volumes A, B, C, D, E, and F of the Norton Anthology of English Literature. So this spans from the Middle Ages all the way to the 20th century and after. These two down here are the 8th edition. This is the 9th edition. All of these make up the 9th edition. These two make up the 8th edition. In my first year of university, everyone was using the 8th edition. In the following 3 years of university, everybody used the 9th edition, and for one course I was actually required to buy all 6 of them. An anthology of Elizabethan prose fiction. The rest of this shelf is my general fiction, what we would consider general fiction in the bookstore. I do have my books laid out in a similar way to the way we lay out our books in Indigo. Hawksmoor by Peter Ackroyd, The Timekeeper by Mitch Abom, 10 Little Indians by Sherman Alexie, Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, Oracle Night by Paul Auster, Mr. Be Gone by Clive Barker, 3 novels, Malloy, Malone Dies, and The Unnameable by Samuel Beckett. We have Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, Hyperbole and a Half by Ali Brosh, The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown, Angels and Demons by Dan Brown, and behind it Deception Point, Heart of a Dog by Mikhail Bulgakov, and Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. I have 2 piles of Mary Higgins Clark books, one stacked in front of the other. Probably not worth my time to go through single-handedly holding a tripod that I can't rest on the floor yet, but I might try and splice in some footage of an earlier bookshelf tour where I actually went through all of these. So don't be alarmed if there is a change and you get to see all of these. Weep no more, my lady. Pretend you don't see her. A stranger is watching. The second time around. You belong to me. Loves music, loves to dance. Remember me. All through the night. The cradle will fall. All around the town. My gal Sunday. Daddy's little girl. Before I say goodbye. Where are the children? I'll be seeing you. A cry in the night. Moonlight becomes you. On the street where you live. The Anastasia Syndrome and other short stories. Nighttime is my time. Still watch. We'll meet again. While my pretty one sleeps. Let me call you sweetheart. Waiting for Barbarians by J.M. Coetzee. And if you want to correct me on my pronunciation, that's cool, but I had a university professor call him J.M. Coetzee, so I'm gonna call him J.M. Coetzee. House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. Breath Eyes Memory by Edwidge Janticat. Room by Emma Donoghue. Close Encounters by Donovan. And we have a little pile of things that have yet to be shelved, which are Outlander by Diana Gabaldon, How Not to Fall by Emily Foster, and Even This Page is White by Vivek Shreya. Continuing on, we have Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, The Danish Girl by David Ebershaw, Bridget Jones' Diary by Helen Fielding, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, On the Other Side by Carrie Hope Fletcher, Marley and Me by John Grogan, Water for Elephants by Sarah Gruen, Trilogy by H.D., The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon, The Humans by Matt Haig, and Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. Red Dragon by Thomas Harris, Hannibal by Thomas Harris, Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins, Beowulf, translated by Seamus Heaney, an advanced reader copy of Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman, an advanced reader copy of The Wanderers by Meg Howry, The Hen Who Dreamed She Could Fly by Sun-Mi Huang, Brave New Worlds by Aldous Huxley, Missing Clayton by Bev Irwin, which, 2 things going on here. One, whoever stickered this at the Coles in London, Ontario did a shit job meeting our merchandising standards. Like, what is this? Why is it crooked? And 2, this is actually a shit book, but it was a gift, so I kept it. 50 Shades of Grey and 50 Shades Darker by E.L. James. The Handy Healing Tea Tree Oil Guide by Dr. Joyce Teeler Johnson. Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now by Andre Jordan. The Hour I First Believed by Wally Lamb. Nightlight, a parody by the Harvard Lampoon. Let's Pretend This Never Happened, a mostly true memoir by Jenny Lawson, which I'm realizing now should actually be with my nonfiction, but whatever. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Go Set a Watchman by Harper Lee. Doppler by Erlyn Lowe. Life of Pi by Jan Martel. Housemaid of Dawn by N. Scott Momaday. The Night Circus by Aaron Morgenstern. The Colorless Tsukuru Tazaki and His Years of Pilgrimage by Haruki Murakami. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. Yes, I'm pronouncing it Nabokov, people of the internet who insist on correcting me. I have had many professors pronounce it Nabokov. The Face is Familiar by Ogden Nash. The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger. 1984 and Animal Farm by George Orwell. My Sister's Keeper and 19 Minutes by Jodi Picoult. The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold, Macbeth, the No Fear Shakespeare edition from high school. Now I would not opt for one of these editions. And that wraps up that shelf. And wrapping up my fiction, The Merchant of Venice, The Tempest, the edition I used in university, The Tempest, the edition I used in high school, Othello in the Norton Critical Edition, Hamlet, A Midsummer Night's Dream, and The Winter's Tale. All of those are, of course, by William Shakespeare. Then I have Ceremony by by Leslie Marmon Silko, Major Pettigrew's Last Stand by Helen Simonson, and can we just admire this book with the beautiful teacups and like patterning. I love it. I would love a print of this. Girl Meets Boy by Ali Smith, Sophocles' Antigone, The Choice by Nicholas Sparks, The Last Song by Nicholas Sparks, and Dear John by Nicholas Sparks, Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck, The Help by Catherine Stockett, Dracula by Bram Stoker, an advanced reader copy of Her Every Fear by Peter Swanson, Brooklyn by Colm Toibin, probably butchered that pronunciation. You're welcome. Heidi's Children, which is a beautiful edition from my grandmother when she moved out and sort of gave up her books. This is by Charles Tritton. The World We Found by Thriti Umrigar, a book that is well loved. The Color Purple, Possessing the Secret of Joy by Alice Walker. The Beauty by Alea Whitley. The Best Kind of People by Zoe Whittall. The Blue Mountains of China by Rudy Wiebe. Night by Elie Wiesel. Again, this should probably be on my nonfiction shelf. Just Pretending by Lisa Bird Wilson. Sexing the Cherry, Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit, and Written on the Body, all by Jeanette Winterson. Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. The Chrysalids, and The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham. Concluding my general fiction, I have Season to Taste or How to Eat Your Husband by Natalie Young. Now that I've made that space by pulling that, can I quickly schmirch? So we will film and move and schmirch at the same time. So next we are moving on to science fiction and fantasy. Blood Ties, Book 1, The Turning, Possession, Ashes to Ashes, and All Souls Night by Jennifer Armentrout. The Chronicles of Shannara, The Elfstones of Shannara by Terry Brooks. American Gods by Neil Gaiman. The Magicians by Lev Grossman. Assassin's Apprentice, Royal Assassin, and Assassin's Quest, all by Robin Hobb. James Eilington's The Shadow of What Was Lost. We have an advanced reader copy of Gilded Cage by Vic James. Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. Valley of Embers by Stephen Kelleher. Arrow's Flight and Arrows of the Queen by Mercedes Lackey. The Color of Magic by Terry Pratchett. A Game of Thrones. A Dance with Dragons, A Storm of Swords, A Clash of Kings, and A Feast of Crows. That is not in the correct order. All by George R.R. Martin. Seanan McGuire's Every Heart a Doorway, and Down Among the Sticks and Bones. Then also alphabetically we would have LMN, Naomi Novik's Uprooted. I'm going to leave these off to the side because they don't fit there. The Name of the Wind, Wise Man's Fear, The Slow Regard of Silent Things by Patrick Rothfuss. We have my sort of hodgepodge Lord of the Rings. So I have The Fellowship of the Ring, the 50th anniversary edition, which is gorgeous, and I cannot find editions for that to match. So I have the movie tie-in editions of The Two Towers and The Return of the King, which I actually like. So down on this bottom shelf we have science fiction, graphic novels, and the beginning of horror. Man, my hand is real shaky. This is what you get for holding the tripod so long. Sorry for the quality at this point. Parable of the Talents, Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler, The Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow by Cory Doctorow, Flow My Tears, The Policeman Said by Philip K. Dick, Neuromancer by William Gibson, Starship Troopers, and A Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert A. Heinlein, The Salt Roads by Nalo Hopkinson, The Secret History of Science Fiction. It's an anthology of science fiction short stories. The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. Woman on the Edge of Time by Marge Piercy. Calculating God by Robert J. Sawyer. Reincarnation Blues by Michael Poore. Adorned Ocean by Joan Slonczewski. Accelerando by Charles Stross. Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells. And Doomsday Book by Connie Willis. Graphic novels, which I grouped together because of size, but some of these are technically 9 to 12 and teen. So we have Nelvana of the Northern Lights, Monstrous, Volume 1 Awakening by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda, an advanced reader copy of Philip Pullman's The Adventures of John Blake, Nimona by Noelle Stevenson, The Sandman by Neil Gaiman, and we have Saga Volume 2 by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples, and what should have come before it, which is Saga Volume 1. Then we move into horror, which is just Stephen King, basically. Horns by Joe Hill. Disclaimer, these are the Stephen King books that I have read. I am a Stephen King fan from about the age of like 10 or 11. So I've read these over like 15 years. Some of these I remember quite well, and some of them I don't. Carrie, The Stand, Different Seasons, Christine, and Pet Sematary. So then we get to the last shelf along this wall. This is the end part of my Stephen King collection, my non-fiction books with a pretty picture book thrown in there. These are some of my to-be-read books. So I have 1, 2, 3 shelves of to be read. The first one being science fiction and fantasy, the middle one being children and YA, and the last one being fantasy continued. The very bottom shelf is my DVD collection and a basket of odds and ends. I have my little house hippo, so if you've never seen the Concerned children's advertising in Canada, I will link one down below, and I will link a Your Movie Sucks, talking about some of the shit that they show to Canadian children. When my partner and I were first dating for Christmas, I asked for a hippo. I want a hippopotamus for Christmas, only a hippopotamus will do, so my partner gave me a little house hippo. Also, I have Charlie the Choo Choo displayed. I have Weird Things Customers Say in Bookshops displayed, because I work in a bookshop. Interstellar Cinderella, and I have Basic Witches displayed. On the next shelf down, I have this little IKEA light, and I have this little ladybug tin. This shelf is gonna suck to do. Let me just say that. There was some logic to this shelf at one point. Not anymore, really. Here in front, I have Song of Susanna. I have Finders Keepers by Stephen King. It, the Bachman books for early novels by Stephen King, which is Rage, The Long Walk, Roadwork, and Running Man. The Eyes of the Dragon, 4 Past Midnight, The Green Mile, Bag of Bones, The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, Charlie the Choo Choo, 11/22/63, Joyland, Dr. Sleep, Mr. Mercedes. We're gonna move this stack for now. Woo! Revival, End of Watch, and Bazaar of Bad Dreams. The idea being with this shelf, at one point, I'm not certain of it anymore, that these were in publication order, hence this, again, in no particular order because these fell on the floor and I'm doing a lot of balancing here. The Gunslinger, the first book in the Dark Tower series. The Wastelands, the third book in the Dark Tower series. The Drawing of 3, the second book in the Dark Tower series. Everything's Eventual, Wolves of the Kala, the 5th book in the Dark Tower series. Wizard and Glass, the 4th book in the Dark Tower series. So on this shelf is my nonfiction. At one point they were kind of grouped by things. I'm not really sure how true that is anymore. Basic Witches by Jaya Saxena and Jess Zimmerman. Weird Things Customers Say in Bookshops by Jen Campbell. Interstellar Cinderella by Deborah Underwood, illustrated by Meg Hunt. Here we sort of have biographies. The Journey is the Destination, Journals of Dan Eldon. Stranger in the Woods, The Extraordinary Story of the Last True Hermit by Michael Finkel. The Opposite of Loneliness by Marina Keegan, which is technically an arts and letters book. It's a collection of short stories, but I've put it in with biography because it is very personal writing. Anna Kendrick, Scrappy Little Nobody. Again, this is a book that we consider a humor book, but I have put in biography. How to Be a Woman by Caitlin Moran. Where Am I Now by Mara Wilson. And I Am Malala by Malala Yousafzai with Christina Lamb. The next stack here are my gender studies books. These were alphabetized at one point, but I pulled them out for various things, so they're not anymore. We have Gaga Feminism, Sex, Gender, and the End of Normal by J. Jack Halberstam. Full Frontal Feminism by Jessica Valenti. Closer, Notes from the Orgasmic Frontier of Female Sexuality by Sarah Barmack. Unmentionable, The Victorian Lady's Guide to Sex, Marriage, and Manners by Therese O'Neill. Waking Sleeping Beauty, Feminist Voices in Children's Novels by Roberta Seelinger Treitz. Reading Women's Lives. This was actually put together by the professors of my first year gender studies course. Cunt, A Declaration of Independence by Inga Musico. What is a Woman by Terrell Moi. And Sexual Textual Politics by Terrell Moi. Guyland, The Perilous World Where Boys Become Men by Michael Kimmel. Toward a Recognition of Androgyny by Carolyn G. Heilbrunn. Feminist Literary Theory and Criticism, a Norton Reader by Sandra M. Gilbert and Suzanne Gubar. Delusions of Gender by Cordelia Fine, which is a terrible book I read for a book club and is technically science and nature, but I grouped it in with my gender studies books. Feminist Literary Theory, a Reader, edited by Mary Eagleton. Dear Ijewale, a Feminist Manifesto in 15 Suggestions by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And Gender Trouble by Judith Butler. So this pile here is a stack of resources on fantasy literature that I used during my MA thesis. Fantasy, the Literature of Subversion by Rosemary Jackson. A Short History of Fantasy by Farah Mendelssohn and Edward James. World of Harry Potter, edited by Mercedes Lackey. And look at that gold foiling. His Dark Materials Illuminated, Critical Essays on Philip Pullman's Trilogy, edited by Millicent Lenz with Carol Scott. The Rhetorics of Fantasy by Farah Mendelssohn. And The Ivory Tower and Harry Potter, Perspectives on a Literary Phenomenon. So the next bit here are sort of random nonfiction for the next little bit. The Language Instinct by Steven Pinker. The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat and Other Clinical Tales. And The Island of the Colorblind, both by Oliver Sacks. Quiet by Susan Cain. Writing Philosophy, A Guide for Canadian Students by Louis Vaughan and Gillian Scott McIntosh. Unclaimed Experience, Trauma, Narrative and History by Kathy Carruth. Fire by Shohini Ghosh. These four books here, are all film books from a queer film course I took in my last year. Zero Patience by Susan Knobb and Wendy Gay Pearson. This is actually a Canadian musical about AIDS. Yes, that is a thing. Word is Out by Greg Umans. And we have My Beautiful Laundrette by Christine Garrity. We have Unspeakable Things by Laurie Penny. And then we move into my mental illness nonfiction, which is The Myth of Mental Illness, Foundations of a Theory of Personal Conduct by Thomas S. Cezaz. And Mad Matters, a critical reader in Canadian Mad Studies, edited by Brenda A. Lefrancois, Robert Menzies, and Geoffrey Rion. And then we move into my religious books. From my religious studies minor, Encountering Ancient Voices, A Guide to Reading the Old Testament by Corinne L. Carvalho. Living Religions by Mary Pat Fisher. The New Testament by Stephen L. Harris. We also have this incredibly sexist book that I bought because the boys' Bible study was reading it at a Baptist church I attended briefly, and it's just awful, and they wouldn't tell us what they were reading about, so I bought the book and I read it, and it's still awful. Then we have Strong is the New Pretty, A Celebration of Girls Being Themselves by Cait T. Parker, and this is my baby, Keywords for Children's Literature, edited by Philip Nell and Lissa Paul. Next, we move into my unread books, or my TBR. Most of these books are tucked off to the side because I never film in this corner. I feel like when I film in front of books, people ask about the books that they see in the background, and if I haven't read them, like, I don't want them in the background, really. The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien, Insomnia by Stephen King, Gerald's Game, Dreamcatcher, Cujo, From a Buick 8, and Full Dark, No Stars by Stephen King, Lies of Loch Lamora by Scott Lynch with this beautiful foil cover, Midnight Robber by Nalo Hopkinson, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams, The Mistborn Trilogy by Brandon Sanderson, which includes Mistborn, The Well of Ascension, and The Hero of Ages, The Light Fantastic, I Shall Wear Midnight, Feet of Clay, and Guards, Discworld novels by Terry Pratchett. I also have Mort by Terry Pratchett, A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan, Wool by Hugh Howey, Magician King and the Magician's Lands by Lev Grossman, Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman, Arcadia by Ian Pierce, and The Mists of Avalon by Marion Zimmer Bradley. Moving one shelf down, this is mostly YA and children's literature. Starting in the front, we have All That She Can See by Carrie Hope Fletcher, The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken, All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven, The Lightbearer's Daughter by O.R. Melling, An Acceptable Time by Madeline L'Engle, The Ossier Academy, a series of unfortunate events novel by Lemony Snicket, The Letter for the King by Tonka Drach, The Girl Who Saved Christmas by Matt Haig, and The Ice Dragon by George R.R. Martin. In the back here, we have Sabriel, Clariel, Lyriel, Aborson, Golden Hand by Garth Nix. We also have To Hold the Bridge and The Creature in the Case by Garth Nix, Skin by Roald Dahl, City of Glass and City of Fallen Angels by Cassandra Clare, Battle Magic and Melting Stones by Tamora Pierce, The Goose Girl by Shannon Hale, Cinder, Scarlet, Anne Kress by Marissa Meyer, Mary Poppins by P.L. Travers, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, Another Day by David Levithan, The Last Magician by Lisa Maxwell, this Roald Dahl box set, which has everything in it except for Fantastic Mr. Fox, which is read and already in section. So we have Boy, Tales of Childhood, Going Solo, The BFG, Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, George's Marvelous Medicine, The Twits, Danny and the Champion of the World, The Giraffe and the Pelly and Me, James and the Giant Peach, The Witches, Essie Trout, The Magic Finger, and Matilda. We have part of the Wheel of Time series, The Fires of Heaven, The Great Hunt, The Dragon Reborn, Lord of Chaos, A Crown of Swords, and The Path of Daggers, The Wish Song of Shannara, The Kingdom of Gods by N.K. Jemisin, 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin, The Broken Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin, The Shadow Rising by Robert Jordan, The Sword of Shannara by Terry Brooks, Renegade Magic by Robin Hobb, Ship of Destiny, Mad Ship, City of Dragons, Dragon Keeper, Fool's Assassin, Dragon Heaven, all by Robin Hobb. Then we have The Air Affair by Jasper Fforde, One Good Night by Mercedes Lackey, On Fortune's Wheel by Cynthia Voigt, and The Kraken Awakes, The Midwich Cuckoos, and Consider Her Ways and Others, all by John Wyndham. So those are largely my read books, except for those 3 shelves near the end there. I am going to clean up the mess, move my bed back, and then film my shelf of shame, which is basically my TBR shelf. Okay folks, we are in the home stretch. So this right here is my TBR shelf, and the pile on the floor, I'll explain in a minute. This, again, is a little divided. We're gonna start with the stuff on the top. I'm actually gonna pull this out from the wall and hope nothing runs out from under it, because I do not like spiders. This was my October TBR before I got horribly behind on everything else. I have Salem's Lot by Stephen King, The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter, The Wind Through the Keyhole, a Dark Tower novel by Stephen King, The Boundless by Kenneth Opel, Night Parade by Caitlin Tengueri, The Monstrous Child, which is by Francesca Simone, and Amulet, Book 7, Firelight by Kazu Kibushi. This next stack here is for my Sex and YA series, Will Grayson by John Green and David Levithan, Empress of the World by Sarah Ryan, Ash by Melinda Lowe, Everything Leads to You by Nina LaCour, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret by Judy Blume, Sugar Rush by Julie Burchill, Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard by Rick Riordan, Sword of Summer, that was book 1, Our Own Private Universe by Robin Talley, The Book of the Penis by Maggie Paley, Dude, You're a Fag, Masculinity and Sexuality in High School by CJ Pascoe, The Program by Suzanne Young, Half Lost by Sally Green, Under My Skin by A.E. Dooland, Texts of Desire, Essays on Fiction, Femininity, and Schooling, edited by Linda K. Christian Smith, and Harmful to Minors by Judith Levine. This next stack here is technically all books that I have read. They are books that I want to reread in 2018. Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery, The Shining by Stephen King, Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris, I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith, The Dumb House by John Burnside, The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides, The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater, The Secret of Platform 13 by Ava Ibbotson, A Passage to India by E.M. Forrester, Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, the first bind-up of Book of Shadows, The Coven, and Blood Witch by Cait Tiernan. So this is volume 1. Oh, there's book 1! Magic by Angie Sage. I told you I had book 1. And Inkspell by Cornelia Funk. Moving on, this is a stack of books that I would like to read, again, relatively recently. That's why it's on the top. Some of these are arcs from an event through HarperCollins, and I will indicate which ones were given to me for free. I have A Great and Terrible Beauty by Libba Bray, Mask of Shadows by Lindsay Miller. This is a birthday gift from my beautiful, wonderful best friend. The Star of Kazan by Ava Ibbotson, and I'm super excited to read more Ava Ibbotson. Hence, Not Just a Witch, and Journey to the River Sea by Ava Ibbotson, Of Fire and Stars by Audrey Coolhurst, The ABCs of LGBT by Ash Mardell, Starcrossed by Barbara D. The next 4 are advanced reader copies I received in exchange for honest review through a HarperCollins Insider event. So I have an advanced reader's copy of The Unlikely Story of a Pig in the City by Jodi Kendall, Lie to Me by J.T. Ellison, The Second Sister by Claire Kendall, and Something Like Happy by Ava Woods. On the next stack here, I have my TY Beanie Boo dragon. His name is Cinder, of course, and I think he looks beautiful on my fantasy books, but he doesn't fit there right now, so he's here with my TBR pile. Sleeping Beauties by Stephen King and Owen King. Fall on Your Knees by Anne-Marie MacDonald. Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alir Sands. In the Unlikely Event by Judy Blume. The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, which is a book I have read before, but I put in the wrong pile. The Break by Katharina Vermette. Madeline Ashby's Company Town, an advanced reader copy of The Valiant by Leslie Livingston, an advanced reader copy of No Good Deed by Goldie Moldavsky, an advanced reader copy of Every Hidden Thing by Kenneth Opel, and an advanced reader copy of The Whole Thing Together by Anne Brashares. This next shelf is my fiction that I really want to read. When I purged my TBR, I decided to keep this. Mad Adam, Second Words, Alias Grace, Cat's Eye, The Penelopiad, and The Year of the Flood, all by Margaret Atwood. The Orenda by Joseph Boyden, Egalia's Daughters by Gerd Brantenberg, All That Matters by Wei-Sun Choi, The 12 by Justin Cronin, World of Wonders by Robertson Davies, Hausfrau by Jill Alexander Esbaum, Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides, The Romantic, Mr. Sandman, and The White Bone by Barbara Gowdy, Come Thou Tortoise by Jessica Grant, I Let You Go by Claire McIntosh, The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle by Haruki Murakami, The Cat's Table, Divisatoro, and The English Patient by Michael Ondaatje, A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki, The Casual Vacancy by J.K. Rowling, The Accidental by Ali Smith, N.W., and White Teeth by Zadie Smith, Blackwater Lightship by Colm Toibin, Irma Voth by Miriam Taves, The Space Between Us by Thriti Umrigar, and The Passion by Jeanette Winterson. We're going to start off with my arts and letters, so poetry and plays. We have I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou, Thin Moon Psalm by Sherry Benning, Pygmalion by Bernard Shaw, Inventory by Dion Brand, Looking, Seeing, Poems and Song Lyrics by Harry Chapin, The Vagina Monologues by Eve Ensler, A Sudden Sky by Ulrika S. Gerns, The Sutler by Michael Kenyon, Anatomy of Keys by Stephen Price, Romeo and Juliet and Taming of the Shrew by William Shakespeare, Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman, The Business of Writing for Children by Aaron Shepard, The Writer's Guide to Crafting Stories for Children by Nancy Lamb, The Portable MFA in Creative Writing by the New York Writers Workshop, Gotham Writers Workshop Writing Fiction, the Practical Guide from New York Acclaimed Creative Writing School, Stephen King on Writing, Wicca, A Guide for the Solitary Practitioner by Scott Cunningham, which was research at one point. We have some odd things first. The Man Who Folded Himself by David Gerald, alternately titled The Man Who Fucked Himself. Pride and Prejudice and Zombies by Jane Austen and Seth Grahame-Smith. Then we get into classics that I want to read. We have Emma Persuasion and Northanger Abbey, all by Jane Austen. I have 2 editions of Jane Eyre because one apparently wasn't enough. I don't know why I kept both. The Manticore by Robertson Davies. Who knows why this isn't with its friend. Tender is the Night by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Howard's End by E.M. Forster. Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, Sunshine Sketches of a Little Town by Stephen Leacock, The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis, Moby Dick by Herman Melville, The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, and Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. We have East of Eden by John Steinbeck. We have an Alice Munro box set that I'm not going to pull out, but contains Hate Ship, Friendship, Courtship, Love Ship, Marriage, The Love of a Good Woman, The View from Castle Rock, Friend of My Youth, and Runaway, all by Alice Munro. We have 3 Agatha Christie's. Murder with Mirror, this is from my grandmother's collection, Murder on the Orient Express, and The Mysterious Mr. Quinn. So on this bottom shelf we have things that I'm undecided about. We have some beautiful books from my grandmother's collection, but I don't know if that I'll ever read them, so I'm deciding whether or not I should keep them because sentiment and visual appeal. I have The Man Who Couldn't Stop by David Adam, which is about a man who has OCD, and I'm debating getting rid of it. The Shadow Lines by Amitav Ghosh, 50 Shades Freed by E.L. James, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Girl Who Played with Fire, and in behind it, the other 2 books in the series. The Hope We Seek, which came with a CD, The Book of Negroes by Lawrence Hill, Spirit Bound by Rochelle Mead, The Lucky One by Nicholas Sparks. These are books that I do want to read, is Rilla of Ingleside, Anne's House of Dreams, Anne of Windy Poplars, Anne of the Island, and Anne of Avonlea. The Lyre of Orpheus by Robertson Davies. Cunning Man by Robertson Davies, Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. Then we get to my unread nonfiction, The World Needs More Canada. This is a super colonialist book that I was given as a gift for free from work at Indigo. Might be something that I could cut up if I want to, like, make a collage or a card or a ransom note. Who wrote that? A biography on Tamora Pierce by Donna Daly. Indistinguishable from Magic by Catherine M. Valenti. The Cambridge Companion to Fantasy Literature by Edward James and Farah Mendelsohn. Anthony Clare on Men, Masculinity in Crisis. Healthier Without Wheat by Dr. Stephen Wangan. Virginia Woolf, A Room of One's Own. A Brief History of Tea by Roy Moxham. Beyond the Pale by Emily Urquhart. Wildflower by Drew Barrymore. The Tough Guide to Fantasyland by Diana Wynne Jones. And Bossy Pants by Tina Fey. So those are all the things on the shelf, but I also had this stack on the floor. For reasons. Amy McKay's The Witches of New York, Into the Water by Paula Hawkins, both were gifts to my grandmother, and again, she gave them back to me. This was all on the little bench that I stood on for the most of this filming. This is my most immediate TBR high priority / currently reading. I am currently reading The Smoke Gets in Your Eyes by Caitlin Doughty, Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman, The Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb, Cat and Meg Conquer the World by Anna Premaza, Witches of America by Alex Marr, and of course my turning to be nemesis, The Dark Tower, the 7th book in the Dark Tower series that I'm just struggling to finish. What is in the rest of this pile are like my high priority reads. I was lucky enough to be sent an advanced reader copy of Artemis by Andy Weir, the writer of The Martian, which I loved. I have borrowed a copy of Trevor Noah's Born a Crime. This is an advanced reader copy of All the Crooked Saints by Maggie Stiefvater, so my coworker Steph was sent this by the publishers and she lent it to me. I have a collection of stories and poems by Edgar Allan Poe that I think is super seasonally appropriate. Cressida Cowell's Wizards of Once. This is The Stars Beneath Our Feet, which is a book I was sent by the publishers in exchange for an honest review, and this is by David Barclay Moore. Finally, I have the much anticipated Book of Dust by Philip Pullman. The Rule of Three by Eric Walters. 365 Days of Wonder by RJ Palaccio. The First Comes Love by Emily Giffen. Hi guys, me again. If you have made it this far, thank you! I know this was a long one. I hope you guys enjoyed my bookshelf tour. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Give me your feedback. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye! That was 4 hours of filming.